Hi friends, Mindy here. Today I'm going to be doing my setup for Facing Fear from Bythewell4God. I have decided to use this pocket journaling Bible kit that you can get that coordinates with the Facing Fear devotional set. And this is what I'm going to be working in, one of the things for this month. So I'm just pulling out all the pieces that come in the kit. You get plenty of fabric, 2 different ones that you can choose from to cover the Bible. You get some extra fabrics that you can kind of, add to it. There's 36 journaling cards. There's 4 sheets of stickers, everything that you really need to do to decorate this. But first, I want to dye some seam binding. This is also available at Bythewell4God. You get, I think it's 5 yards. And on the back of this page, there's actually a little spot you can scan to take you to Taryn's tutorial for how to dye this seam binding, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you how I do it. So I'm working on a nonstick craft sheet, and I'm using some Distress inks here. These are the little daubers, and I have a plastic bag, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm just spraying down the seam binding with some water, and then I'm using these daubers to just get some ink in there. And I'm starting with the color Wild Honey, and I'm going to be using a couple different colors to try to get the look that I want. But basically, I'm just going through and spraying some water, adding some ink, and then I pulled it out of the bag and mixed it around just to kind of check on the color. And then I added some more. Then I moved to, I think, Vintage Photo was the next color. You can see I'm kind of drying in between, just checking on it to see when I'm getting to the color that I want. And then I finished using some walnut stain as well. And then I'm just going through the same process. I'm just getting it wet. I'm adding some more color. Keep in mind, if you're using this, that, Distress inks reactivate with water. So, you don't want to get these ribbons wet afterwards, or even use like a really wet glue with them, because it will reactivate the ink. So once I finally get it to the color that I want, I set it off to the side to dry, and I'm going to start covering my little pocket Bible. I have another video on my channel showing how to do this a little bit more in depth, but it's the same kind of process. I'm using this Cocoina glue stick here, and the reason I'm using a glue stick instead of a liquid glue is because the liquid glue will seep through the fabric and it will make it stiff. It can even stain certain fabrics. And so this glue stick gives you enough time to be able to kind of work with it. You could use bookbinder's glue. Also, it's a little bit thicker, like a PVA, but I would really recommend using a glue stick of some sort, either this one or like a Yoo-Hoo. Is another really good adhesive that you can use. They have these in the shop as well, Bythewell4God. And so I'm just going around. I started with the back side, and I'm just doing the actual cover part. So I went around the spine, and now I'm doing the front, and then just kind of had that tucked in there with some clips. You could use some paper clips if that's what you have, or some alligator clips or whatever. Just kind of holding that in place. And now I'm going to work on tucking these in. And on this particular one, I went ahead and cut out just a little bit of this fabric on the corner, just to make it a little bit easier to wrap this. And then I'm also making a little triangle cut out here. That's basically kind of where the book block is of the actual Bible. That way, the fabric, because I'm going to be tucking some of the fabric kind of in this to the spine of the Bible, and but you have to allot for the thickness of basically the text block. So I'm just cutting out a little triangle here, and you can kind of see that I did that on both the bottom and the top. And now I can go start the process of gluing this down. So I'm going to do the bottom first, and I realized I didn't cut the corners on this side, but I'm going to start with folding up the bottom here, and then I'm just using my little clips to hold it in place while it dries, and then just pushing it down really well. And then so I did the bottom and the top, and then now I will do the side. And as I'm gluing here, I also put some glue on the fabric, because I'm going to kind of pleat this around the corner, because these Bibles have a rounded corner, so you can't really miter the corners. So I'm just kind of pleating it as I go around. And then I will move these clips to the corner to hold that down really well. And then I'll just kind of do the same thing on this other side. It's kind of hard to see with my big fingers in the way, but that's what I'm doing. And then just holding that in place. And then I will do that for the other side as well. And now I'm going to work on tucking in this piece into the spine. So you can kind of see, if you open up the Bible and kind of fold the cover back just a little bit, it will open up that spine. Because it's a curved spine, it will kind of pull away from the text block, and you can just tuck that fabric down in there. And I'm using a little pokey tool to get it down in there. You could use a bone folder, paper clip, or whatever you want to do. And at this point, I want to use the seam binding to be a closure for this Bible. I'm expecting it to get a little bit chunky as I'm working through my entries for this month. And so I thought having a closure on it would be helpful, so that I can tie it off and just kind of keep everything all together. So I'm going ahead and go add this, and you have to be kind of careful, like I said, because this seam binding has been inked with distress and it will reactivate. So I'm being very careful about putting my glue in this one section and not moving around the ribbon too much, because that distress ink will reactivate. So I went ahead and just did that for the back and around the spine. And then I'm working on getting the other pieces to kind of accent. These were also pieces that were in the little Bible journaling kit that you can get. And so I'm just using these. I took this orange piece and I tore it. I really wanted the kind of frayed edge on there. So I'm gluing this piece down to the front, and I'm going through this process the same exact way. So I'm just kind of lining this up where I'm going to want it, and then I'm going to apply this glue. Now I'm working on top of the fabric here, and so I'm going to apply this right over the seam binding and everything, and I'm leaving space at both the top and the bottom. That way I can wrap it around to the inside, and then I will apply some more glue here, and then let that wrap around to the inside. And we'll cover the inside in a minute, so I have time to kind of do this. So you want to kind of do this ahead of time if you're planning on wrapping these extra fabrics around the cover as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the back side as well. And I just tried to line those up so that they were roughly in the same spot, pretty close anyway. So now I want to use this brown fabric to wrap around the actual edge of the spine. So I went ahead and I tore off a piece again to get that frayed edge, and then I'm kind of making sure I have enough, so that I have the same amount on both the front and the back, and then I tore that edge as well. And again, I just want to get that frayed look. So now I'm just wrapping this around again, just making sure everything is going to line up the way that I want it, and I'll go through the same process again. I'm just going to add that glue stick along the edge. I'm going to start with the top, the front side, and then I'll work my way around to the back as well. And then I'm going to go through the same process as I did with the cover piece, where I'm going to open this up. I'm going to make some cuts in this brown fabric as well, so that I can once again cut and tuck that brown piece down into the spine. And just this, it's getting a little bit tighter, but there's still plenty of room, especially if you kind of, arc that back just a little bit. It will pull the spine away from the text box, and you can tuck that right in there. So now everything is glued together. You can see I still have some clips on there for some areas that are still drying from those extra pieces. And now I'm going to work on these liner papers. These are already cut perfectly sized to fit inside your Bible. So I'm just going to fold these in half, and I'm using my bone folder to get a really good crease. I'm trying to make sure these are as even as possible. I have to fidget with this one a little bit. For some reason I got it a little crooked, but I'm just using a bone folder to really get a good crisp edge. And then I'm going to take this is the front side cover, and I'm going to work on the inner page first. So that way I can get it to line up easier this way. So I'm just adding this adhesive. I put a piece of paper in here because I want to make sure I'm going off of the edge to make sure every little piece of this is covered with adhesive, and then I'm going to kind of just tuck this in, and I can move this around a little bit, just making sure that everything lines up really well, and then just tucking that down, and then I'm going to add adhesive on this other piece, and again making sure that I have glue running all the way to the edges, and then I'm just going to close the Bible down now over it, and that is going to make sure that everything is right where it needs to be. All of my little kind of messed up edges are covered now with this paper. And then I went ahead and just put those clips back on the corners just to really make sure that that holds down well, because there's so much fabric and stuff kind of tucked around the corner. It just helps to do that. So you can kind of see now that I have everything in place, I just added some more clips, and I ended up needing to add a little bit more to my seam binding as well. And then I'm just going to set this off to the side. So it dries a little bit, within a few minutes, but you really do want to let it sit before you do too much to it. So probably an hour or so has passed now, and I'm taking off all of the clips, and you can kind of see how it looks when it's finished. I left this seam binding extra long because I know that this is going to get bulky, but also I can always trim that down a little bit later. So I just kind of tied a bow here on it, and this is going to be what I work in for the devotional for this month. If you have any questions about this process, feel free to leave them down below. If you have not subscribed to my channel already, I would appreciate it if you did that. Give this video a thumbs up, and until next time, bye-bye.